see this noticeable just glare up at me like, motherfucker.
Josh, did you offer to take your stuff back so she didn't have it in her purse?
I think I did, actually. I did.
Okay.
I did at that point.
Which is huge growth.
Yeah.
Huge
because before it would have been like tough titty,
time.
cram it all in your purse. Yeah. You're the purse carrier.
Right.
All right. My second grievance with Josh is the frequent visits to the restroom and how ill-timed they are. Ill-timed. For example, we're at a boarding gate. We've been sitting there to board an airplane for an hour and a half. 1 hour and a half. You've had an hour and a half to go pee and or poop. And that's like, pre-boarding starts now. And all of a sudden, Josh has to race to the restroom. That's number one. This is a compound grievance. The second point is, I believe that he is a bulimic pooper. And what I mean by this is he's constantly forcing poops that aren't ready in a very ill-timed manner.
I'm very proactive in trying to, when it comes to pooping. Like, I try to get out in front of the problem, like well in advance. Well in advance.
We really needed that power slide.
Check this out. That these important topics are being shared. Like, everybody needs to know.
Again, I have gratitude for these problems. I have gratitude
that what you wish for, but you have
the purse hijack. Purse hijack is my complaint with you.
Almost unforgivable, really.
And it's constant.
And you have a man purse. It's not like you're against carrying your own bag.
No, but I some of these functions, I don't know if I want to bring that. I know last night was kind of an exception, but I've done it many times before. and it is like on a small purse, if you add 3 or 4 items to a very small handbag, it just consumes the handbag. And so I accept some responsibility for that. I have to admit it.
All right, Josh, what have you had it with?
Well, I've had it with a bunch of things, but the first thing I've had it with is and I've thought a lot about this, but it's
all right. I went left field. One thing I do try to do is not try to piggyback off of what everybody else doing. I go left field and talk about whatever that I feel that nobody else is talking about. And so this is what this piece is about. You know what I'm saying? And, it's like on a Seinfeld level, the show Seinfeld, where they specialize in talking about nothing that matters, but it matters, if that makes sense. If you know the show Seinfeld, you know what I'm talking about. So I ain't got to go into detail. So, it's like a micromanage and analyzing every detail of every little thing. And you find humor in that. So that's what this piece is about. It's going left field. It's going Seinfeld. Wale was a genius to put that into his music, but it was influenced and inspired by meeting Seinfeld, which he explained on I want to say the Fat Joe and Jadakiss show. They asked him about, will you come up with the Seinfeld concept? So he actually met Seinfeld and got inspired to be like, you know what? Let me write some skits and let me see if Seinfeld would like to be part of it, And pertaining to Seinfeld, the show, the success that it had, and attaching myself to it. So when people that like Seinfeld hear this in my music, that's going to be another audience that was genius to really grasp onto that train and get on board with that. But it was genuine. And then Seinfeld liked it, Jerry Seinfeld. So, uh, you know, yeah. So this is what we doing. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? I thought I'd fade y'all with the Fendi today. You know what I'm saying? Just feel like it's a Fendi day today. You feel me? Yeah. You know. Um, what else to talk about? Got Mother's Day coming up. You know what I'm saying? You know. Ooh. Um, yeah, Mother's Day coming up. So let me show you a picture of my mom. She's been gone since 2022. You know, you know, it done left a real void, but it done made me stronger. And with her passing, with my dad passing, it done really unleash, with my dad passing, it done really unleash. And with my mom and my dad passing, it done really unleash a lot of load from my shoulders. Meaning, I got four loved ones that's gone. My mom, my dad, my grandmother, my sister Tamika Chambers, my grandfather's fathers, my grandmothers. You know, I didn't know my mother, Dolores Chambers. She was, she died like when my father was a child, so he didn't really get to meet her. No, he did meet her. He knew her before she died, but I never met her. Um, so it's cool nowadays to have a mother-in-law. Cause in my first marriage, I didn't have a mother-in-law. I had a father-in-law. So I recently have a mother-in-law and a father-in-law. And that's cool. You know what I'm saying? But Mother's Day, you know, you want to represent the mothers in the family. So I guess it'll be cheaper for one of them ladies to cook, but nobody offer to cook. And I think they feel like that's a day off for them, which it should be, as it should, because they taking care of everybody else in the midst of like every day, all day. So for one day, it's their day to put their feet up, and you know, it's about them to be catered to. But you know, but the way I feel, and I don't have no problem with this, when it's Father's Day, I want the same energy. And I must say, I get the same response, especially from my wife. You know, but I try to be there for my niece. She's a single mother. Her child father, unfortunately, died. He was murdered. And my mother's gone. Her grandmother, her mother is gone, which is my sister. So, I try to be there for her because collectively, the family, our immediate family, everybody is about themselves. And I get it. It's the hustle and bustle and the grind of everyday life. So everybody is self first. And I'm not mad about that. But I just look at, I don't want her to be taken advantage of by some sucker ass nigga, sucker ass ninja. I'm sorry. And it's going to be bad for that person. So instead of not protecting her, I protect her. And that means I keep her close and make sure she good. That's what I explain to my wife. I say, I got to keep her close, her and my niece. So I know that they good. You know what I'm saying? And so people that's watching her will see that she has protection. She's not out here by herself. You know what I'm saying? And because of that protection, I believe she's growing stronger every day versus being vulnerable out here and being pressed to be with someone and around someone. I'm teaching her independence and strength and discipline and focus. I'm talking to her about what's important, and that's earning your money and getting your money to take care of you and your daughter. It's a must and an importance for your daughter to be proud of you. So whatever that look like, you need to make that happen. And she's following my instructions, and that's making me proud. That's making me understand my influence is really being heard and is being put in, into use. And bottom line, she hear what I'm saying to her, and I appreciate that, you know. And so, like I was just saying, my parents died, especially my mother. It lifted a lot of burdens that I was carrying, meaning just trying to take care of everybody. You know, my mother didn't want for nothing. And when my father got sick, my mother told me, look out for your father because he needs you. I know y'all don't have the best relationship, but God gonna bless you being a blessing to your father, you know, and don't curb your blessings, don't block your blessings. And I listened to her and I did just that. So the last 5 years of my pop's life, we got back close. And, you know, the whole time he was going through his ordeal of being sick, I was right there with him. And I'm proud of that. And I'm glad my mother talked me into it. You know, we as men, we very stubborn a lot of times. And You know, that's the beauty of a woman, that her softness and gentleness will persuade you to do things you don't want to do. Because man, we built to be like, you know, you don't mess with me, I don't mess with you. So somebody gotta break the barrier or break the line or cross the line. So usually it's a woman that mediates that. You know what I'm saying? And appeal to you to look at it from another angle, from another lens, and ultimately it's about doing the right thing. No matter who take the first step or who don't, somebody got to do it. So I know elder people have more pride than anybody, and even when they need help, they're not gonna ask for it for the most part. And so once that was brought to my attention, that you know your dad need help, but he not gonna ask you, I just felt like, okay, I'm gonna be the bigger man, and I'm gonna go assist my father. And I was glad that I did it, and I feel like God is really blessing me for being a blessing. And but I've been a blessing since forever out the gate to my family, because my father doing his thing, he was a street dude and going through what street dudes go through. My mother felt like she was a single mother, even though he was in the picture. But he wasn't consistent. Let's just keep it real, like without details. But because let's just say this: when a parent not consistent, a mother or father, somebody got to pick up the slack. So in my case, because my father wasn't consistent and everything was on my mother, when I became of age, I had to relieve some of that stress from my mother, and I did that. So I stepped in and I took over and I held the family down, even though she was, you know, the boss, the matriarch of the family, and I was second in command. Everybody, for the most part, hated that in my family, because I would give orders on behalf of my mother, without her giving the okay or not, but I knew it was okay. So that's why I did it. And I was really resented for that. And I ain't give a shit about it. And now that she gone, everybody that rebelled against the orders that I was projecting and trying to be an example for, when they pushed back and wanted to be, you know, uh, you know, trying to find the words, resisting. You ain't my father. Where is your father? let me say this. Sometimes I just wish that I didn't care like I did. And I wish I didn't care so much, but I do. And I did. And people around me, family wise, they get tired of me talking about what I had to sacrifice. Of course, you don't want to hear it. Of course, you tired of hearing it because, you know, when you a fuck up, you don't want to hear that you a fuck up. And I'm going to remind you that you was a fuck up. And I had to stay on your ass. I had to check you over and over. It ain't the fact I'm trying to be breaking everybody balls or on everybody back, but I walk the walk and I talk the talk. I ask everybody to do the right thing because that's going to propel you long term, but nobody want to see it, the vision. Everybody living for right now. Oh, fuck what you talking about. All that bullshit, you know. Oh, you think you goody two shoes and this and that. Okay, I'm just saying. I'm telling you, being resistant, rebelling, doing shit you know you ain't supposed to be doing, that shit gonna come and bite you in the end. So I get asked a lot, how did you get away? And what made you different from everybody else to go in the direction that you went in? Why was your mindset so different than everybody else? Why didn't you just follow the crowd? I said, well, let's really take it back to the beginning. 5 years old, I moved into an apartment building that was nice, 1011 7th Street. That's the hood. And that's so we talking 1975. So 1980, the crack era started. That same apartment building me and my mother and siblings lived in. That building became a rat infested building, which was a great building to live in 5 years prior. It became a rat infested building, mouse and cockroaches and roaches and shit. No matter how great you kept your apartment, which my mother kept our apartment immaculate, but the building itself was crumbling and breaking down and deteriorating because when crack hit, everybody was making money, everybody was getting territorial, and that made our building dangerous, meaning different crews formed in that building. You got the crew up front, you got the crew in the back, and everybody lived on different floors. So, you know, it automatically clicked you into whatever floor you lived on. And everybody had relationships with the front crew and the back crew, depending on, you know, who you was affiliated with and hung with every day, who you went to school with. So, you know, I say all that to say, if you was an outsider, if you wasn't with nobody, it was a good chance you wasn't gonna make it out of there. So with me saying that, the trash man supposed to empty the center. what is it? The accelerator that catches the trash when you throw it down the trash chute. I think I'm saying that right. With the trash chute, where the trash get dumped and it's supposed to go down to the basement. So these dudes that empty that trash stop showing up like they supposed to, which was day to day, weekly. That shit became monthly, and then it became that they will skip months and don't come and get all that trash. And that trash piled up in the incinerator. Yeah, the incinerator. The trash chute is also called an incinerator. If I'm not, if I'm saying that right. So from the basement, the trash will back up to the trash chutes. So you could no longer put trash. I lived on the third floor. So imagine trash building up from the basement to the incinerator, and then the trash chute, you can't put no more trash in there. So what is we doing with that trash? We didn't have a big dumpster out back of the building like they do now. And now, not that I realized, and I don't think we did. If we did, that was full too. So you just throwing trash on top of trash. And then at the trash chute, we would just leave the trash there because it couldn't fit inside. So guess what happened? The food and stuff draw rodents and stuff. So from a good building 5 years prior, because of the crack era and them guys that empty that trash, they were scared to come in there because they were getting robbed and so forth. They saw people getting beat up, drugs being sold in the building, junkies in there shooting up. It was crazy. But that's our everyday norm. This is normal to us because we see it every day. But if you didn't live there and you just coming there for your job to move trash, this is a wild place to be. And it intimidated you. So I know my mother in particular, and I guess a lot of the neighbors, used to call downtown and try to get things done and say, look, this trash need to be taken out these chutes. It's piling up and it's drawing mice and rats and uh, you know cockroaches and stuff. You know what I'm saying? So that right there, my mind was made up. I'm going to do better in my life, no matter what it takes. But I'm gonna do it the right way. So from living in them conditions alone, my mind was set. I was 10 years old. And I told my mother, I said, I'm gonna buy you a house one day, or I'm gonna get a house one day, and we're not gonna have to live like this. You know what I'm saying? And my mother like, well, I'm not gonna wait till you grow up. I'm gonna get us out of here before then. But my mind was set at that point. That's what I'm trying to get around to. So then as I was growing up, by 12 years old, my friends that I used to play, you know, uh, 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 you know, kickball with. So we kids, roller skating and all that. These dudes, drug dealers at 12 years old. They acting like grown men now, you know. So being my father was a street dude, he was an influence that was like, I don't want you in the streets like your friends. I need you to be a better version of me. I need you to go and be somebody in life. So that means you got to keep your nose clean. You need to go to school. I want you going to military so you can get out of this town and go places in the world and see other places and do things. And then once you get the military your time, they will back you with buying a home. You know, you could be a homeowner. So this is what my father was influencing me and talking to me about, and not asking me to doing it. Not asking me to do it, he was telling me to do it because he wasn't going for it. So now mind you, I'm 10, 11, 12. So he putting structure and discipline into me at that point, you know, because about time your kids turn 16, if you haven't put structure and discipline into them, then it's not going to happen at that point. They their own person and they're going to rebel. Even if you do put structure into them, and even if they do rebel, they do have the structure. So when the light bulb come on, they'll revert back to it when they have to be in survival mode. But trying to teach discipline to children at 16, it ain't gonna happen. Structure, discipline, it ain't gonna happen. You gotta get them kids when they're kids, before 12 years old, before 16 years old, because they trusting in your words and what you telling them to do. So again, my father was an influence, a big influence to keep me out the streets. Then my mother and grandmother followed up on it. My love and respect for them kept me honest. I was told that we don't need nothing that bad that's worth your life or worth giving time to the jail system. You know, you got to think long term instead of just right now. So I was taught to do that early on, and I did that. So I was taught to look into the future and plan your future. I was often asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? So we need to put that manifestation into our kids, because a lot of kids just getting up every day and have no aspiration or nothing that they want to be. And and sometimes even if they are and they do have aspirations, it's negative. So we have to plant the positive seed, you know, and we say you could be anything you want to be. The fact of that statement is really a 80-20 situation. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say 60-40, because even if you miss the mark, you'll land somewhere, because everything that I planned didn't go as planned. So that's what I'm saying. So I know that firsthand. But I landed on my feet. And because I had plans, I didn't allow nothing to curve me. Like, I took the summer job when Marion Barry started the summer youth program. And after that, I worked for McDonald's. And then in high school, I was in the trade program learning brick masonry, and I got a job as a senior. So I had a half a day because I would go to work from 12 to 4, and I go to school from 8 to 10, 8 to 11, something like that. And so after I graduate, I had a job in construction. You know what I'm saying? But me and my friends that went the legal route, we always was trying not to get curved by our friends that was in the streets getting these big knots, and while we working for a check at McDonald's or working a regular job after, we graduated high school, them jokers will be flossing and flexing. They new cars, nice clothes, the nice women they had around, and they like, why you fucking around with the job shit? You know, we getting this money. I said, you know, my grandmother used to talk to me. She would say, that's short term what they doing. You know, they funny now, but they gonna be crying later. So you do what you need to do now to set yourself up for the future. I'm listening to my grandmother. I was taught to listen. And that's what a lot of these youngins' problem nowadays. They don't want to listen to nothing. They think they know more than you when you done lived this life. And I think that's all kids at some point. Because I was a knucklehead at some point, But I had the tools. I had the structure, the discipline. Even before I knew how to use it, it was taught to me. So when I had to be in survival mode and tap in, it was dead. You feel me? It came second nature. Like when you ride a bike, when you've been taught to ride a bike, you can always ride a bike. So when you being taught discipline and structure and focus, it's there when you need it. And then when you really get mature about what you're commanding, you off to the races. You know how to live in that mode. You know how to step in and out of it, if you will. So it's just, you know, choices that you make define you at any time in your life. And I was taught to make great choices, good choices, even when I didn't want to. I just and I was taught also. This is funny, but somebody gonna hear this and really move on what I'm getting ready to say. I was taught when you get ready to do something wrong, before you do it, just really think it through. And if it's a good chance that you're not going to get away with it, don't do it. So if you're going to do something wrong and if the odds really in your favor that you're going to get away with it, then go ahead and try your hand. But I wouldn't recommend you keep doing it. But as you analyze it and be like, nah, I ain't going to get away with it. Don't be impulsive and just be reactive, because that's going to get you fucked up. Trust me. I've seen it happen. Dudes like, I ain't thinking about that, and I'm going for it. I'm gonna do it, and it be bad. It work out bad. So take a few minutes and really understand what you're getting ready to do wrong, and if you can get away with it, then do what you do. But if you don't see getting away with it, then don't do it. And that's the best option anyway. But if you really got to contemplate it because you really want to do it, take the time to plan every detail out on how you're going to get away with it. And I hope you make the smart decision about it and not do it. It's okay to do things at a slow burn or slow pace, meaning living life. Like I said, and I mentioned this before, it used to be a leather jacket everybody used to wear back in the 80s. Live fast and die young. Like, who put that as a brand and thought that that was okay? You know who did that? The devil. The devil put that as a brand. The devil influenced somebody to put that as a brand for the young, stupid teenagers and young adults to think that brand was cool, and they put it on a cool leather jacket for us to promote that shit. I never thought that that was a cool brand or statement. Live fast and die young. Nigga, I want to live to be 100 or better. Live fast and die young. When I really start thinking about what does that mean and what it meant to me, I say, you know what? I ain't fucking with that brand. I had a nice leather coat that had that on it, and I stopped wearing it because it was negative. It was negative. You know what I'm saying? And I wasn't supporting enough that, you know, promoted that. You know, how about I take my time to live and grow old? How about that? I guess that's not cool. I guess doing the right things is not cool. I'm gonna end with this because I'm getting ready to go to church. I should have been gone. I'm gonna catch probably the next service, but through my three influences, my mother, my father, my grandmother, they taught me focus, discipline. They taught me strength, which was my structure that came into play when I stepped outside my door and I had the whole world to deal with and the whole world coming at me with the bullshit. I was able to stand on 10 toes and control my narrative of what I was going to do and what I wasn't going to do. Meaning, I didn't let nobody influence me to do something that I didn't want to do, you know? So I'm happy to say that in 90%, I didn't crack under peer pressure or, you know, I figured out how to get around it.